Hello from Village, I'm Erin Parsons, and in this video I'm going to be talking to you about all of the equipment that you both need and want for candle making. You need a scale to weigh out your wax, and you also need it for weighing out your fragrance oil. That is the proper way for figuring out how much wax and fragrance oil you need for your candles. I have to admit, it's not the way that I do it. I have figured out how much my wax melts down to in fluid ounces, and I just use those fluid ounces to figure out my pounds, and then I just measure out. I usually put about 30 mils of fragrance oil or 1 ounce of fragrance oil into 1 pound of wax. That's the way I do it. It's the way that's always worked for me. They say it's not the proper way of doing it. So if you would like to go with the proper way of doing it, then you need a scale to weigh everything out. And the next thing that you're going to need is a thing to melt your wax. So I use a Presto pot. It comes with a piece of paper that tells you not to use it for candle making. I happen to know that many people do use it for candle making, which is probably why it comes with that warning. But we at Village Craft & Candle have a fabulous 9-liter melting pot that has a spigot on the front that makes it so easy for pouring out your wax. So definitely check that out if you're going to be making a lot of candles. They really come in handy. You can set your temperature and it will help maintain your wax at a specific temperature. So those are wonderful if you're going to be making a lot of candles. If you're just getting started and you're not really ready to get that deep into it, then I would recommend just using a couple of pots to make yourself a double boiler. Now, I don't recommend that you use your pots and pans out of your kitchen that you're using for cooking. I would recommend that you go to your local thrift shop and get a couple of pots, old pots there, and use those for your candle making. You can also use the microwave if you're going to be working with soy. It's really easy to use the microwave. Put it into a microwave safe container, put it in the microwave 30 seconds at a time, just the same way that you would melt butter. 30 seconds at a time, take it out, give it a stir. If it still needs to melt some more, put it into your microwave again, and just keep doing that until your wax melts. Then you're also going to be needing things to measure with. So these are great. You can find these at the dollar store. We have these fantastic 5-ounce measuring cups. They're great for measuring out your fragrance oil. I definitely recommend that you get those. Again, you don't want to be using something out of your kitchen that you're planning on using for your food again, because you don't want to use fragrance oil in them. They're oil-based. You can clean them, but I don't recommend that you use something that you're planning on using for food afterwards. So the next thing you're going to need is something to pour with. These can be great for pouring. I like to keep these not contaminated with fragrance oil. I also like to keep my wax melter not contaminated with fragrance oil or dye. I like to have a pour pot. I melt my wax and only wax in the melter, whatever melting source I'm using. Measuring cups, again, just the wax or just fragrance oil. And then I have a separate container for blending everything together. So I like our pour pots. This is our small pour pot. We also have a large that will hold 4 pounds of wax. This one holds about 2. So these are great. They've got a spout on them there that makes it easy for pouring into your candle vessels. So these are fabulous to have. You want to be able to check your temperatures on your wax. to make sure that you're at the right temperature for adding your fragrance oil and dye. So there's different types of thermometers. It doesn't really matter which one you use. They all work. I like these because they're really easy and fast. You just point it at your wax and it will give you your reading. So thermometer. Something to stir your wax and your fragrance oil and dye together with. I just get these at the dollar store. You can also use skewers. They can be used over multiple times. Just wipe them off with a paper towel when you're done with it, and it's good to go for another time. So those are great. When you're pouring your candle, you want to have your wick secured to your container. I know a lot of people do use hot glue guns. I don't recommend that you use hot glue for putting your wicks down, because if any oil or dirt is underneath that, it can make it so it doesn't stick very well. These are wonderful. They will hold your wicks down really, really well. So I highly recommend getting our WICK STICKUMS. When you have poured into a container and you want your wicks to stand upright and you don't want to stand there holding your wick upright while it sets, you need a wick clip or something to wrap your wick around. These are great. We love these wick clips. They're very easy to use. You just slide your wick up through that hole and then slide it over, and it will hold your wick upright and in the center of your candle. You can also use, if you don't want to get those, I've seen people use clothespins. I've seen people use a straw, bend it in half and taped at one end, and then you just set it down and slide it up through the two sides of the straw. So, I mean, there is other options, but these are great. So if you're not going to be using a container and you're planning on making a freestanding candle, you are going to need a mold for your candle. There are many different types of molds. We have silicone molds. These are wonderful for any type of wax, really. They're really great for beeswax because they will allow the candle to come out really easily. So silicone molds are wonderful. This one came with a wick pin. So you just put the wick pin down the middle and you pour your candle. You need to make sure that you spin that wick pin a little bit so that it does not become one with the candle. But the wick pin is great if you are wanting to just hold the place for your wick and then add your wick after the candle has set. If you don't want to do that, you can also just slide your wick straight through that hole and then secure it to something like the wick pin would work. Secure it to that, and then that will keep your wick going straight up the center of your candle for those. We also have metal molds. Metal molds are just as great as silicone. I would not recommend it for beeswax. If you have, with a circle, you can probably get away with it. If it gets stuck in your mold, you can just pop it into the fridge or somewhere cold, and then that will help shrink the wax a little bit and make it easier for it to come out. But if you are making something like a star or something that has lots of points and edges, then it can get a little bit tricky to get your beeswax out. But if you're just working with paraffin or even the soy pillar wax, then these can work great. We also have votive molds, which are wonderful to work with as well. Then when you are pouring your candles, it can get a little bit messy. There's drips from your pour pot that can get all over the place, and it's oily, and if it's got dye in it, it can stain. So it's a really good idea to have some type of a pan to put your candles on while you're doing your pouring, to catch all those drips, and then that way you can just scrape it clean and you're good to go. Now, once your candle is ready to go, all done, then you need to put a caution label on it if you are going to be giving it away or selling it. This will cover you if something ever happened with your candle. you need to make sure you have this on there. If you're keeping the candle for your own personal use, then you don't need a caution label. But if you are going to be giving it away as a gift or selling it, you need to have a caution label on it. Your candle's all ready. You have your wick sticking out the top. You need to trim it down to 1/4 inch. We have these wonderful wick trimmers that you can get for trimming your wicks. They're really great, especially for wood wicks, because they can let you trim it straight across. It can be a little bit challenging using scissors to get in there. You'll end up cutting it on an angle if you're cutting your wick in a jar, but scissors can still work, especially for cotton. You can use those. I love to use nail clippers, especially the toenail size ones. They work wonderful for clipping off your wick at the 1/4 inch mark. Then you're at your cleanup stage. You do not want to use soap and water to clean up your equipment. It can not only wreck your equipment, it can also wreck your sink and clog your drains, because all of this stuff can clog your drain. So I don't recommend that you use soap and water to clean up. I recommend that you use heat and paper towels. So I have my hair dryer will work no problem. Heat guns, if you have it, they're wonderful. So I would definitely recommend those for the heat. And then just wipe out your melted wax with a paper towel, throw it in the garbage, and you're good to go again. I don't have one here, but a scraper, paint scraper, or dried paint scraper. I don't know what they're called, but I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Those are great for scraping up any drips that have gotten all over your table as well. Another great tip for cleaning up, if you are using our liquid dyes, they are incredibly concentrated and they can stain, but citrus essential oil or even citrus fragrance oils like lemon or clementine, anything like that, they are fabulous for cleaning up spilt dye. Just put some onto your paper towel and wipe it up, and you will be shocked at how well it cleans that up. And speaking of spills and stuff, old clothes is definitely recommended. You don't want to get, these are all oil-based things and they will stain your clothes, so you don't want to wear anything that is that you like, because if you get stuff on it, it will be hard to get it out. Again, use some heat to get it off, or better yet, wear a apron while you're making your candles. Have to keep an eye out. We are going to be introducing some new Village Crafting candle aprons, so those will be wonderful. Definitely check those out once those are available. So those are all of the pieces of equipment that I would recommend that you get if you're interested in candle making.